So in making the decisions that you made when you were on the show, did you question it, or were you like, yeah, no, this is what my gut is telling me. This is really, I have to stay true to that.
Yeah, no, I knew what my decision was going to be. For us, the filming part of our season was 8 weeks. And I knew at least within 2 weeks what my decision was going to be. They were trying to convince me to make other decisions. We'll say they wanted a different ending. And I was like, sorry, that's your ending. That's not mine. And they really didn't like it. And there was a lot of people out there that they were not a fan of me.
You weren't their favorite person.
Not at all.
Today we're going to be talking to somebody who truly understands what it means to navigate the world of dating, to have your life put under a microscope and a lens, and to find ways to stay true to yourself and also stay hopeful. Now, these are big asks. These are big things. This is not something that we do lightly, and it's hard to be self-observant. And these are all things that we're going to be talking about in today's episode. But before we do, I want to share a little bit about my own journey through this. So, as many of you know, I'm trying to open up a little bit more about my own experience into dating and trying to get back out there in a world that is hard to navigate, especially when you're dealing with a widow, when you're dealing with going through grief and loss, when you're dealing with having love for somebody that's no longer here and yet trying to stay open to new possibilities and new things that might be out there. That is really, really difficult to do. I've probably been more open to dating in the last year and a half or so, and I've tried to open myself up a little bit more to being out there and being open. The one thing that I'm learning about myself is that I truly do enjoy sharing my life with somebody. I do. I enjoy having a partner and somebody to kind of walk through a lot of life's ups and downs with. I miss having that. I miss having somebody to talk to and to share things with. Even though I recognize that, and even though I see that, what I also recognize and see is that I also have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. What does that mean? Well, right now in this present moment, it's uncomfortable being lonely. In this present moment, it's uncomfortable being on my own, being alone, taking care of everything myself: the house, the dog, the finances, the business, the property, fixing things. I am not always great at asking for help. So that in this moment for me, what it looks like is being comfortable in this uncomfortable stage that I never anticipated myself being in. What that also means is that I have to sit in the loneliness, that I have to be okay sitting in the loneliness until I'm not alone anymore. And it means being present. It means being present in the day that I'm in. And that's something that I have to work at. Staying present is not just something that happens. It's not just something that you do. Being mindful is not something that you just do. It doesn't just come naturally. You really do have to work at it. And in order to do that, I have to take steps and do things that'll help me stay mindful, help me stay present each and every single day for myself. And that starts with a gratitude journal. So every single day, I try to find a few things that I'm grateful for that day, whether it's just my health, whether it's my dog's health, whether it is being able to feel the sun on my face, smelling fresh cut grass, seeing a cardinal's nest out my door, having friends to get together with, going on trips, I just have to find a few things that I'm grateful for each and every day. And then I build on that. And that pulls me back into the present moment, into where I am currently in this moment. And that is not easy to do. Being lonely, I never asked. I never asked to not be a wife. I never asked. I never made the decision to walk away from my husband. He was taken. As time goes on, I'm learning how to live with that, but opening myself up to somebody else who can be just as comfortable with that, who can understand the unique set of circumstances and what that means is challenging. I have to relearn how to communicate with people all over again in a new way. I have to be okay with where I am in my life right now and understand where somebody else is in their life right now. I need to relearn that everybody comes with a different set of circumstances. We all come with life attached to us because we're human beings having a human experience. And that means being open to other people's challenges, other people's nuances, other people's baggage. And we talk about this a little bit today in the episode because baggage comes with a negative connotation and it is not negative. Please understand that. Just because we all have baggage does not mean it's a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It just means that we all have life circumstances. So these are all things that I'm learning. Here I am in my 40s, and I am learning things about myself and learning things about life that I wasn't confronted with before, that I wasn't faced with. I'm learning about different attachment styles. Now, did I know about and understand some of these from when I used to be a social worker? Yeah, absolutely. But I never thought about it. I never thought about it in the context of my own life or somebody else that I might be with. Because again, Mike and I met when I was 24. We grew up together, essentially. We became adults together. We adulted together. And we knew each other. We knew how to dance with each other. We knew how to go in step with each other. We knew how to communicate. We learned how to communicate. And he was the only one I had to think about that with. Now it's different. Now I'm in a different phase of life, a different journey of life. And I'm learning about how other people have navigated their life. And then how do you work with that? How do you open yourself up to meeting somebody else, knowing your triggers, knowing that you come with a different set of circumstances, and what are they coming with? So these are all things that I'm trying to learn. And I will be very honest with you. For as much as I've shared with you guys, this is an area that I have not been very outspoken about with all of you. And it is not an area that I'm extremely comfortable sharing for multiple reasons. Number one, there's guilt. I feel guilty opening myself up, saying that I want to possibly date and meet somebody. There is guilt attached to that. I worry about somebody saying you don't love Mike anymore. That will never be the case. Ever, 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 ever. But it's also me having to share different aspects of my feelings and different parts of me personally that I've never shared with all of you before. So this is new for me as well, but I want to share because there's so many of you out there that are going through similar experiences that I'm going through and that my guest today is going through. So I'm learning different parts of myself. And this is something that I've always said and that I will always continue to say. I don't care if you're 80 years old. You should always be willing to learn and grow. If you're no longer learning, you're no longer growing. And it doesn't matter how old you are, we should always be willing to learn, grow, and learn something new. So I am in that process right now. I am learning new things. I am learning new parts of myself on this journey. And it's trial and error. There have been some bumps in the road. I am trying to figure out some new communication styles and some nuances of my attachment style. Even though I have a secure attachment style, what I went through with Mike is triggering sometimes and brings a level of unsuredness and fear to opening myself up again. So stay tuned because I will continue to share with all of you as I go through this. But for right now, we have Ty Ferrell, who is our guest, and he's going to be joining us next. And he has a great message for everybody about staying true to yourself. And I think this is something we all need to hear because it's coming from a man, the opposite sex. He's humble, he's kind, he's genuine, and he's making himself vulnerable. And I think that that is really important for all of us to be mindful of. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It's not a weakness for any of us. It's a strength. We need to interconnect and relate to each other in order to be in healthy relationships. So he joins us next after a brief word from one of our sponsors.
This season of the Game on Glio podcast is sponsored by GT MedTech and Gametile Therapy. Learn more at gametile.com. This season is also sponsored by IMVAX, personalized, whole tumor-derived immunotherapy. Learn more at imvax.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. I am joined right now by Ty Ferrell, a girl dad who is also a professional photographer. He is a cowboy beyond just the hat. He has been in the rodeo circuit for many, many years. He is a man who can accomplish a 99% of a honey-do list, but is still waiting for that special someone to give him a list to accomplish. Ty, thank you so much for being with us today. For everybody who is watching or listening, this is one of those episodes that is hopefully going to inspire all of you out there to not give up on finding love, on following your passion, on staying true to who you are, which is really at the core of what we're going to be talking about today. It's needless to say, it goes without saying that at this phase of our lives, it is not easy to be single. It is very complicated to navigate the world of relationships and dating. And you've kind of experienced this firsthand, but you've done so in a really impressive way. And so I want to dive right into that. Anybody who has watched reality TV, and I will say I am not one of those people that loves reality TV. I steer clear of it. But
Yeah.
for some reason, I watched one season of Farmer Wants a Wife, and it was season 2, which is the
There you
season
go.
that you were on. And it's a reality show that really targets, helping those navigate finding love. You chose to be on the show. What made you decide that it was worth trying that? Because it's very raw to put yourself in front of cameras in that way. So what was it that made you say, yeah, I'm going to give this a shot?
Um, it was just so random and out of the blue. I'd got a message one night from a friend down in Alabama. They had messaged her, and she reached out to me. I've known her and her husband forever. And she was like, hey, this casting people reached out to me and asked if I knew a cowboy to be on the show. And she was like, yeah, I gave them your name. And the next morning I was on a conference call with them. But once I kind of heard about it and thought, well, I live in a place that I don't go on hardly any dates. I don't get out much anymore. There's not really anything to go do around here in Southeast Missouri. So I thought, maybe this is just meant to be. The ladies, the dynamic of the shows, the ladies come live with you at your place. And I thought, well, if somebody is wanting to experience that and wanting to get out and be somewhere else for love, then, that's what more could you ask for?
It takes a huge amount of self-recognition and self-awareness to want to put yourself into a situation like that. So it's very commendable that you were willing to give that a shot, because I know many people who aren't. And I can relate to the sense of, living in a place where it's hard to meet other people. And even though I live in a suburban area of a city, it's not a huge city. Everybody knows everybody else. You
Mhm.
always There's always like a third degree of separation from somebody that you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And it goes without saying that at this phase of our lives, for those of us in our 40s, most of our friends, most of the people that we do know or acquaint ourselves with are married, have kids, are established in some form of partnership with somebody else. So it's difficult. And so that's
Mhm.
definitely an out of the box way to try to meet somebody. You were very open on the show to finding love and to meeting new and interesting people. However, you come from a background where you are divorced.
Mhm.
Um, do you feel that that made it harder for you to open up again and wanting to invite this into your life?
But with in regards to the show or just in general?
Just in general, just in general.
No, no, not at all. I've always thought, that part of my life's happened. I learned from it. Uh, I always thought, well, shoot, I got through that. I learned, I experienced something, possibly the next relationship. In my mind, I thought, well, that'll be easier because I learned so much from the last one. But that's really not the case. What I experienced in my next long-term relationship, I realized that just because you grow through a relationship and you learn things about yourself and then also how to communicate and even listen, you
Mhm.
still, the next person that you're with, it's still a different language that you're speaking. You have to learn everything new over again. You have everything that they're bringing into the relationship is something that you've never experienced, or even if you have, even if it's similar, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they hear you the same or you do everything that you've learned. It doesn't mean that that's what they hear. And
Yeah.
so it's all, it's just such a different thing, different relationship, different person, different feelings, different thoughts.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I think that we tend to forget that, if we've gone through certain experiences, then it's already prepared us for the next thing. But I think we have a tendency, all of us have a tendency to forget that whatever we come to with our experiences, we're all human beings that have
Mm-hmm.
had human experiences through our lives, and they've shaped each of us differently. So when we meet new people, they're coming with their own set of situations or circumstances that have shaped them into how they treat communication, how they
Mm-hmm.
work with somebody, how they problem solve. And we have to navigate. It's literally like erasing the board and starting all over again and continuing to being open to learn. And that can be really challenging, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, and even to add on to that, even from what you learn and experience about yourself,
Mhm.
sometimes your mind is your own worst enemy, you
Oh
know.
my God.
And so
Absolutely.
even though that you've learned and you think like, okay, you know how to express those things or understand or even know what your tics are, say when somebody comes to you and expresses something in a way you're like, oh gosh, that reminds me of my past relationship.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you always communicate back in the right way or the ways that you've learned, and that's what's so difficult.
Yeah. I completely agree. And, for those who haven't seen the show, Farmer Wants a Wife, I don't want to create spoilers for those who may go and rush out to start watching it. But so I'm not going to disclose the ending, but there were some decisions that I think surprised everybody. But what was amazing to me and what was impressive to see was that you stayed really true to yourself and you listened to your gut. Did you know what was the right decision to make, like, in that moment? I mean, in and the reason it's so impressive is because as you're saying, we have to continue being willing to learn ourselves, and sometimes
Yeah.
our head and our heart, we're listening to one instead of the other. We're putting ourselves in our head instead of in our heart. And sometimes we forget that we need to kind of trust our instincts and trust our gut and trust our heart. So in making the decisions that you made when you were on the show, did you question it, or were you like, yeah, no, this is what my gut is telling me. This is really, I have to stay true to that.
Yeah, no, I knew what my decision was going to be. For us, the filming part of our season was 8 weeks. And I knew at least within 2 weeks what my decision was going to be.
Mm.
Even in the end, they were trying to convince me to make other decisions, we'll say,
Yeah.
I was like, no, that's not my story.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fall into your Hollywood, not scripted, but they wanted a different ending. And I
Mhm.
was like, sorry, that's your ending. That's not mine. And they really didn't like it. And there was a lot of people out there that what I learned is they see me through their own life experiences.
Mhm.
And people that have been through something like that, they were not a fan of me.
You weren't their favorite person.
Not at all. And I got pretty thick skin, but
Yeah.
we'll just say I had to turn off my Instagram notifications for a few days.
Oh, I'm sorry you went through that. It's
Yeah.
it's weird because when I watched it, I came at it from a completely different lens. And so
Mhm.
for me, it was very impressive to see the decisions that were being made. Now, granted, I didn't know that was something that you kind of knew right up
Mhm.
front, that you knew halfway in, but this is the thing about listening to ourselves as we're walking through relationships, any kind of relationships. It doesn't even have to be romantic relationships, but even our friendships or the friends that we meet as we get older. I can attest to personal experience that there were people in my life after my husband died that it became very toxic, and I didn't realize the gravity of that. And I had to choose to
Mhm.
walk away, which was a very difficult decision to make, especially when these were people that had been in my life for a long time and that I thought I needed for support. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you develop with people. You have to really find a way to stay in tune
Mhm.
with what your heart and your gut are telling you versus what your brain is trying to rationalize. So for me, it was really impressive to see that this is somebody who knows himself really well enough that he's not going to let pomp and circumstance and cameras and millions of people dictate. And that is not easy to do. It's really not easy to do. So
Yeah.
I think it's commendable. I think there are people out there that would probably agree with me that, yes, that was impressive.
Yeah. And I appreciate that because that was a tough day. When you're telling, someone something that they're not expecting, which I wish that before that day I would have told
Yeah.
uh, the certain lady that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
It definitely is a deal where I fell into the trap of TV about not expressing something like that beforehand because leading up to the finale day, there was 2 or 3 days worth. And it was so tough.
Yeah.
And I came off very cold because it was, just sitting here just thinking about trying to deliver something to somebody that they're not expecting and everything about it. And,
Mhm. It's harder to do it in front of cameras too. I will like you knew the
honestly,
conversation you had to have, and instead of being able to have that with her personally.
yeah, even well, what it does is it forces you to have it in person, right?
Yeah.
But the difference with it being on camera is it's like, hey, is this going to take 30 minutes? Is this going to just be like me delivering what it would be in real life, or is this going to be a TV situation where we've got to
Yeah.
do? How do we say we do everything once, just 3 times
Yeah,
because
it's
you got to get all the different
prolonged.
angles and shots,
Yeah.
and so it basically came down to about 2.5 hours worth of a breakup,
Wow.
which was just it was miserable for me. It was miserable for her. It was
Mhm.
miserable, I'm sure, for everybody. And about 2.5 hours into the whole thing, I dropped this friend line comment, and I was just like, "Wow, thanks, brain."
Yeah.
Exhausted, and you totally just
That's
screwed
painful.
me over.
That's
Sorry to
like
say.
taking a Band-Aid and ripping it off one corner at a time
Hmm.
for like an hour and a
Yeah.
half.
Yep. It was like I finally gave them something that they really wanted,
Yeah.
a complete um, line that most people never want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. That's hard enough to walk through. It's hard enough to walk through that experience when it's just the two of you
Hmm.
navigating that. And the other thing I'll say too is that, to for as much as these shows can be entertaining and great for people and ratings and everything else, relationships don't normally, it's hard to navigate something in just 8 weeks.
Yeah.
It's, even if you know if you know something in your gut, if you're meeting people after a few weeks, you get a good instinct as to whether or not this is somebody I want to continue having a conversation with or hanging out
Yeah.
with. And my counselor has said this numerous times, that people who, like, after 3 months, 6 months, they're like, we're going to move in, we're going to get married, this is great. It takes 3 to 6 months to really start to see the vulnerability in each other and to really start working out the kinks with each other. So
Mhm.
to speed that up that much it's just not realistic. It takes more
Mhm.
time.
I mean, what a lot of people don't realize too, I'm sure our show was pretty laxed when it comes to uh, people just being able to be around.
Hmm.
The ladies all had to stick together. They have talent wranglers, um, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
what people don't realize is you go through so much and nobody really understands what it's like. And I call it our trauma bond. And so
Mm.
everybody does create this very traumatic bond
Hmm.
because you're kind of shut off from the outside world to an extent. I know in other shows it's way more, so I couldn't even imagine that.
Yeah.
But you're also put in this world and you don't really know what's going on with the ladies and they don't really know what's
Mhm.
say going on with me. And then you have production and the crew that
Yeah.
they're kind of you know working the art of the deal. Let's say, I won't say manipulating things, but you know they kind of have an idea of hoping to get what they want, and
Yeah.
they're pretty good at it. But it's also you go to different places and you're hanging out in a hotel room
Hmm.
for sometimes a day and a half by yourself. You're locked
Wow.
down. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a different ball game that people don't realize. So whenever like that bringing the new ladies for this
Hmm.
season, kind of
Yeah.
give a little clip there for people. The ones that really reacted in the most negative way were the ladies that really probably weren't wanting to be there in the first place.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then somebody gets to come in and not have to go through all the traumatic things and experiences that everybody else had done. And they're like, oh, so she just gets to come in here and not have to go through what we've been to be here right now.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. Yeah, it does. It creates a completely different set of circumstances and a different set of challenges, in all
mhm,
honesty, on
absolutely.
how you're meeting people, and
Mhm.
dating people. Let's push that beyond the scope of the show,
Yeah.
because for those who have been through divorce or loss, even the death of a partner or a spouse, what would be your advice to them for not losing hope and staying open to finding love or a relationship again? Because I think that can be really challenging for so many
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, that's a great question because at this point, I guess I was single for a little over a year when I did the show.
Hmm.
And gosh, that's been, well, it's coming up on 2 years since we started filming.
Right.
And yeah, I'm just still doing the same thing I did beforehand.
Yeah.
With a little bit more, I guess, attention from social media, which is just such a false hope. Um,
Yeah. That's to be expected.
and that's what's really difficult. It's, even with, let's say, like dating apps, there's
Hmm.
the availability of possibly meeting someone.
Hmm.
But then, you're just seeing a picture, you're seeing a face.
Yeah.
What do you, then if you have that conversation and then there's that flow of what's happening there.
Yep.
And it gets a little exhausting. You have that hope of finding somebody
Hmm.
or, maybe connecting with somebody. But I think one thing that I've realized maybe here more lately is if you're going to start a relationship, it has to be with somebody that's going to be available.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess that goes beyond just location. They have to
Yeah.
be available in the place in their life where they want to actually invest in invest in
Hmm.
a relationship. That's step number one. That
Yeah.
has to be there. And if that's not there, you know, if they, whether they know it or not, um, you can't push forward because, it's like talking to somebody and they're just not listening to you. Their mind, their emotions, everything is in a different place.
Yeah.
And, Yeah. So that, with that being said, the hope of finding somebody and going through it, it's, I guess if it's just going to happen, it's going to happen.
As we're talking about this idea of trying to stay hopeful, it's something where you mentioned a couple of things that really resonate with me because I became more open to the idea of dating a couple of years, well, probably a year and a half or so ago, was when I really started to dip my toe back in. And it's, over 4 years since Mike died. And that comes with its own set of challenges. The fact that, I didn't choose the way my life has taken shape over the last 5 years. It's something that was out of my control and happened. When Mike and I met, there dating apps didn't exist. Cell phones barely existed. It was, I think for a while I had a pager. So, it was a completely different ball game trying to navigate that. And when I did get on the dating apps, location was never an issue. It was a lot of what you were talking about in, can this person be available? Are they truly open and available? Can they understand my unique set of circumstances and be willing to work with me as I navigate how this looks and feels? And it was one of those things where I had to listen to myself and get off the dating apps because the amount of anxiety that it created for me was, I couldn't do it. It was too much. And you meet some really horrible people as well. So it was not the greatest experience. But that idea of staying hopeful and staying present in the idea of, and this was something that I only just really kind of understood about myself, is that I'm a faithful person. I always have been. And I think that's what has helped keep me grounded in going through all of this. But the one thing I realized was that God really did make me to be a partner. Like, I was not meant to just live out the rest of my days completely alone, siloed by myself. And I miss that. I miss having somebody to walk through life circumstances with and to lean on and to be there with and to have joyful moments with. It's something that is just ingrained. It's just a part of me. It's always been who I am. And so I miss that. And I think that is where, for me, the hope comes in, because that is the hopeful part, is that I recognize that piece and I'm willing to be open because I know that that's just a part of who I am. So I don't know if it's similar for you in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a little kind of crazy thing about me, I'm all sorts of into astrology and, people having their birth charts. And I credit that to one of my really, really good friends. I actually met her on a dating app years ago. It was kind of funny. Like, grew up an hour and a half from me.
Okay.
And, but she kind of did the whole birth chart thing for me. And I was like, oh, okay. I was reading through all this stuff and I was like, yeah, that's not me. That's not me. And then what I started realizing is the things that I was like, oh, that's not me. It's the things that I didn't like about myself. And so, but then also, when I was going through those things and reading, yeah, I'm the same way. I'm very much, I put a lot of my happiness into not being able to so much provide for somebody, but just doing little things to help them, or, I guess they serve them or whatever. Probably almost too much, I've learned, going a little overboard and putting that, basing my happiness based on if they're happy, not because of the things that I'm doing. Because ultimately, if you're going to do something for someone, you have to do it and never expect anything back.
Right.
Because if you do something and expect something back from somebody, I mean, that's just a horrible thing to put on yourself, for one, and especially somebody else.
I think that kind of leads into something I was going to ask you as we went along, but this is the perfect opportunity to bring it up. There are different love languages, 5 different love languages, something that I never paid much attention to until recently. And there's actually a quiz, a test that you can take to figure out what your love language is. And you're kind of touching on that a little bit now, because it's a huge representation on how we both communicate our care to somebody and how we receive and want to receive care from somebody. It's a great glimpse into how we navigate being in a romantic relationship. And you and I were talking about this the other day. And I will be honest, I was a little surprised when you said you were familiar with it because I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah. It was
expecting.
such a quick response at that.
I was not, I almost dropped the phone. I was like, oh, wait,
That's
he's
good. That's
familiar.
called marriage counseling 101.
Okay, well, it's something that I've never. My counselor actually gave me the book. She's like, "Oh, there's a test in here if you want to take it." And I'm like, "Oh, I already know. I already know what I am. I know exactly
Yeah.
what I am." And then I decided to take it last night, and I was floored that I was the reverse on a couple of things. And
Yeah.
for those who don't know what that is, the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time together, and acts of service.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and acts of service are not just like fixing things for somebody else, but it speaks a lot to what you were just talking about, how you're doing something for somebody else because it's your way of showing them that you care about them, but you're doing it without the expectation of something in return.
Mhm.
How do you feel that understanding that piece, understanding this is how you communicate your love or your care for somebody, how do you feel that that helps you in navigating a romantic relationship?
Well, just like anything else, it's just being self-aware
Mm-hmm.
and actually knowing that, but then also, I'd say, practicing it
Mm-hmm.
and then being aware of that, because it's the same thing. I was in Montana last year taking a hike, just a quick little thing, but I realized that, you could be talking to somebody that wants to hear something,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that they also necessarily are listening to you. Um, and that's the same thing. It's you read these things and you understand, like, oh, this is who I am, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to really put that into practice and know that, okay, this is why I'm doing it. And, also, just because you're doing that for someone that you care for
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that they're receiving it in the way that you feel about giving it. So that's why there's also the acts, it goes both way. What do you like to give? And also, what do you like to receive? And
Yeah.
just to be self-aware of those things, and in a relationship with someone, um, and not just doing it one time and reading the test and be like, oh yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
It's just a good understanding of, I think little things like that are great study guides for a relationship. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, myself included, back in the day, a long time ago, it's like, yeah, you just really like somebody and care for them, then, things will be easy.
Yeah.
Let alone, like, life happens,
Yeah.
there's days where you're having a crappy day and they're having a great day. And, you know, you might bring them down a little bit, but that you just have to be aware that, things are going to change. It's going to be, the opposite or the reverse of that. And, you just got to stay in the middle and not be comfortable, but
Mm-hmm.
just realize that there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, and just being there for that person, and, hoping that, if you're with them, that they should be there for you too.
Well, I think that speaks to, I mean, it's pulling off the mask. I think that's that vulnerability. And I actually just put up a post about this. I think women have a slightly easier time being vulnerable than men do, but and I've said this to some of my guy friends, that showing vulnerability is actually really sexy. Like, if a guy can show vulnerability, that is it's not a weakness, that's a strength, but it's not easy to do. And the longer you're with somebody, that vulnerability of, I'm having a bad day, you're not, but being able to lean on each other,
Mhm.
being able to be there for one another when you're not both on the same level at the same moment, or you're not at the same speed at the same moment. It's a dance, and it's figuring out how each other moves and then kind of trying to find the best way to move in step with each other. And it takes a lot of work. It really,
Mhm.
really does. And I think people just expect that they're going to have this hallmark moment and everything's going to be roses and daisies. And that's just how, when Hallmark movies end, they end when people finally decide to be together, and bam, that's it. The movie's done. It's like, all right, let's fast forward 2 or 3 years and see how
Yeah.
things have been going down the road.
Yeah,
I
and
think,
the way they get us in those, like I'm not necessarily a Hallmark movie guy, but I know what you're saying. It's but they get everybody to come into it and pull you in for the fact that um, you want that to happen. You want it to happen. You want to see that love story. That love story sells, and once you get it, it's like poop, it's over. And like, okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's the happy ever after. Not everything that comes after that, which
yeah,
is life.
yeah. So now, let's talk about, because you do have a life. You've got a really busy and full life. This isn't, life goes on, and it's trying to figure out and navigate finding somebody that can fit within that, and how you guys can navigate and fit with each other. You have a daughter that you spend a great deal of time with, that you have an amazing relationship with, not only in doing the show, but just in being open about this part of your life, and that you're trying to show that vulnerability, that you do want to eventually meet somebody. How has she received that? How do you communicate with her so that she doesn't feel so overwhelmed by a lot of the changes and stuff that go on when you do meet people and they come and go?
I think there's definitely a line between being a friend and a father. And with Lennon, I mean, I try to be her friend, and then when it comes down to like, having to show some authority, or I said laying down the law, which I don't have to do often, but at times, I try to teach her in a way of, I can tell you to do something or not do something, and you're
Mhm.
still going to do what you want to do anyways. But I just want to let you know there's consequences.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that just kind of goes with everything when it comes down to relationship. She was super excited whenever I told her about the show, and because, like, ultimately she wants me to be with somebody.
Mhm.
That's just who she is. She wants everyone to be good and to be whole. And I think deep down, like, she would like to have, you know, a female figure in the house,
Mhm.
but it's not like I'm just gonna be like, okay, it's about time for me to have a relationship. Who's the first person that I can find to fill that void? That's
Mhm.
never what it's been about. But she, yeah,
She seems
she
like a pretty
really
remarkable young
like
woman.
do what?
She seems like a really remarkable young woman.
Thank you. Yeah, she's pretty good girl. Um,
Resilient.
yeah, she's pretty wise beyond her years, which is a good thing, and hopefully not too much to where she can get away with too much without me knowing.
Well, she's a girl, so I will say I've put my
Exactly.
dad through his paces
Yeah, and
back in the day.
that's the kind of the years that we're going through right now. It's you talk about learning a relationship and
Yeah.
not going through and living in the past of, oh, like, do you remember when we used to do this? Because like you see movies and TV shows where the little girl is becoming a woman and the dad's just like, oh, still living and wanting that little girl. And I tell
Yeah.
everybody we're in that stage of, I'm just dad now, I'm not daddy. um that's
Yep.
tough. And
Yeah.
then you're having to develop a whole different relationship with a woman,
Yeah.
instead of your little girl. And that's a whole that's probably a whole nother podcast worth of conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic. You mentioned, and I kind of keyed in on this because it's something that I can understand to a degree, but you mentioned something about not wanting to find somebody just to fill a void or to give her a female figure in the house. And I think that's really important to kind of zero in on, because that really speaks to this idea of settling, number one,
Yeah.
um, out of fear of not finding somebody, which can be
Mhm.
really easy to do. How do you deal with being okay and being still in the loneliness?
Yeah. I guess they ask me kind of those same things. back when I did the show, and I just referenced that because it's one of those things that really stuck out. It's like, you know, here where I'm at, I'm by myself, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely in the way of like being that way all the time. You know, it's nice to be able to share experiences with somebody. And then there's also, the part of being single, I think that, a lot of people really don't get is you can just be to yourself. You can
Mm-hmm.
be by yourself if you want to go somewhere, and you can experience those things. Ultimately, it is nice to share them with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think there's a fine line too for some people that when you're alone for so long, you find just as much comfort in that, which is not a dangerous thing,
Yeah.
but then you don't put yourself out there as much. Like for me, people are like, they see me at times and see stuff that I posted or whatever, like, oh, he's this or he's that, or he's a
Mm-hmm.
partier and he's wanted to be on TV for something. I'm like, nope, that's not me at all. Like I sit here at the house, I hang out by myself, I go outside, I listen to music, um, I think the most maybe that I ever go do any given weekend or weeknight is like probably go to the Mexican restaurant uptown and have a drink and
Yeah.
have a couple tacos and come home and that's my weeknight and that's my weekend.
Yeah.
There's not much around here to go to, and that's what I think gets me like the loneliness is like, how will that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just something that you can't search for. It's just going to have to happen.
It sounds like it's being okay in the moment of loneliness, but not getting so used to it that you don't know how to share if
Hmm.
somebody does. It's almost like trying to juggle staying open and aware while also moving forward and just maintaining and doing what you have to do for yourself. And that can be a tricky dance
Hmm.
to cultivate.
But just like you talked about earlier, like when you met your husband,
Hmm.
um, that part of the world, there was no dating apps. There wasn't hardly social media. Like I went through that with, whenever I met my wife,
Yeah.
there was none of that. And then that ends. And then all of these things are starting to come around and it's a whole different world. It's opened the world up to all this potential.
Yeah.
And then also too, I mean, that's where a lot of people fall into the negative as well.
Yeah.
Well, that person doesn't meet this one little thing that I want. So on to the next.
Yeah. It's easy to
And
click through. It's easy to swipe and just
mhm,
push it aside. Yeah.
yep, yeah,
Yeah.
and no one's perfect, and I think that just comes back down to the more we talk about this, the more I realize that you have to have somebody that just wants to share the same things and that are the same place of life that you are.
What do you think are two to three really valuable lessons that you have learned through all these experiences that you'll carry with you into a potential relationship down the road? Like things that really stick out where you're like, this is something that is just it's inside me now, and I'm gonna take this with me into the future because this is what helped me grow.
Hmm. I think number one that I've learned, in life and definitely through the judgment of a TV show, it's people judge you based on their own self-reflection of their own life.
Yeah.
They see you through their own lens. So you can't take anything too personal. Doesn't mean that things don't hurt, but you just got to understand that they've gone through something completely different the way you see your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then two, I think you have to be okay and be happy with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you've got to be that first. You can't base your happiness on somebody else or what somebody else thinks of you. Um, you've got to be okay being who you are first. And this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I tell my daughter, you be you be happy doing you, be your own person, like you talked about, make your own money, do your own things.
Yeah.
You know, there's that difficulty in that part of life, but then ultimately it's makes you whole and makes you happy.
Yeah. I think that speaks to the secure attachments, like learning how you navigate how you've grown up, the challenges that you faced. It speaks to, secure and healthy attachments, insecure and unhealthy attachments, and how that shapes you. Um, and I think being able to understand those dynamics do help a lot. I think that there's also importance in triggers. And so, when you're navigating meeting new people or dealing with, potentially being interested in talking to somebody, how do you are you able to recognize kind of your triggers, or how the past may shape the way you may have a colored lens
Right.
on how you see things? Because I can see, like, I'm always very mindful of my triggers and
Mhm.
what may misrepresent how I'm looking at something.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. We
Yeah.
kind of touched on it a little bit earlier.
Yep.
If you're not aware of them, then I don't really know what somebody could do about that, other than if they just
Therapy.
have, yeah, and would they even be open to that in the first place, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Therapy, I don't need that. Nothing bothers me. Okay, you know, um, no, it's probably the biggest thing that
Mhm.
can either make or break a relationship,
Yeah.
is being able to understand your triggers, being able to express those to the person that you're, um, maybe want to start something with.
Mhm.
Also, do they get it? Do they understand it? Can they be aware of it? What do they say? You got one mouth to talk and two ears to listen, so you should listen twice as much, which is a great thing. And you can
Yeah.
listen, but you also really have to comprehend what somebody's saying to you and
Yeah, you mean
understand and be empathetic to those things. And
communication.
I can sit here and say that. I can sit here and say that, and it doesn't mean that it's easy. Just because you're aware of it doesn't mean that it's easy to practice.
Yeah. Well, none of what we're talking about is easy to do or easy to practice, but it starts with communication. It starts with
Yeah.
everything, I think, comes back to self-awareness,
Mhm.
being self-aware. And then how do you carry that into navigating, meeting and being open to new people, and then recognizing none of it is easy ever.
Mhm.
Um, you
And then
know,
still, you have the biggest enemy that you'll ever face is in between your ears and behind your eyes. I mean, it really is. You're
yeah.
you're typically your own worst enemy, if you realize it or not.
Yeah, I think the self-talk, and it goes back to that, putting yourself in your heart space instead of your head space, because
Mhm.
it is so easy to rationalize and talk your way out of something than to just pull yourself out of that and put yourself in your heart space and be able to say, okay, what is it I'm actually feeling right now? And that is not easy to do.
Well, I mean, possibly for you, for me, on the other side of things, going back to astrology, like, I'm a Cancer, I'm a feeler. I had to, that was not difficult for me to learn or understand, but then to just embrace it. Like I've mentioned before, with my ex-wife, we did a lot of marriage counseling.
Yeah.
We're going through a whole lot. When we were, getting married and through the marriage and having Lennon, her mother passed away from cancer, and
Hmm.
there was a lot of difficulties in life.
Yeah.
Um, and I was always someone that was completely open to, therapy. And then after all that ended, still yet, like, I realized that it's nice to be able to talk to somebody that can hear
Mhm.
you and isn't going to, like, judge or get upset based on something that you're telling. So
Yeah.
I tell
Yeah.
everybody, like, you know,
Impartial.
no, my old marriage counselor therapist, she knows more about me than anybody. And one of the biggest things that I'll always remember talking to her is, like, I told her, I was like, I'm not as logical as I'd like to be.
Mhm.
I'm not a thinker with my head. I'm a feeler, and I feel things and think things.
Mhm.
How does that feel to me? Not what do
Yeah.
I think about that? And then she was like, that's great. She's like, now you've got to realize that once you know that you feel a certain way, now you have to think about what you want to do about that. And I'm like,
Interesting.
dang, okay. I was like,
That's really interesting. I have to sit on that for a minute, because that's, I was always a feeler. But I think that my experience losing Mike kind of pushed me into more of that guarded, I'm a little
yeah,
bit
you
more
went to defense mode.
reserved.
Like, life threw
Yeah.
you a blow that, most people should never have to go through
Yeah.
a loss that like that. And, I'm not completely aware of the exact situation of how and when and what, but loss is never easy,
Yeah.
whether you expect it or whether you know that it's coming for a year or two.
Yeah.
And it affects everyone differently.
Well, it goes back to that, what you were talking about earlier, what we were both talking about, that, we all come with a set of life circumstances. We have human experiences that shape us and that either help or harm how we proceed forward. And so, and that kind of, it goes to my next question for you, what in taking all of this in and having all of the experiences that you've had, what is your hope for a relationship or a potential, like what is your hope, like what would you at the deepest part of you, want going forward?
You know, I've always thought certain things when it came. So let me back up. My ex-wife had nothing to do with horses. It didn't mean
Hmm.
that she couldn't get outside and be dirty if she wanted to or needed to. But ultimately, being somebody that's, in the horse life or the rodeo world, and I would like somebody that had an understanding with that or maybe had some experience with horses. But, that's not my whole world.
Right.
It's it's not my career. It's something that's been a part of my life for a long time, and I don't
It's a
think it would be
passion.
hard for me to move away from it
Yeah.
completely. Like I haven't really roped or ridden my horses, in a couple months, but I've been working, and it's I just needed a break, needed something different.
Yeah.
With that being said, I've always thought like that's something that I needed out of someone,
Hmm.
but really it's who I am, but it's such a small part, I guess, deep down when it comes to moving forward in a relationship. Um, I think I spend too much time hoping to find someone is my biggest issue.
Hmm.
Um, I think I invest too much into that instead of just, you know, being more into other things, I guess. Just being present in the moment of what's going on in my everyday life, right? That's something that I'm starting to realize lately. How, like you talked about, you were on this dating apps a while ago, and just you get too anxious about things, and too many things went wrong. And for me, it's living in a place where I'm sure there's a lot of single ladies around, but it's when it comes down to meeting somebody, that's why you do those things. That's that hope, and I think I've got to let loose of that hope a little bit more,
Hmm.
um, and possibly just see how things could happen.
I think that's good advice for anybody who's listening, because it isn't, I'm sure there are a ton of ladies out there, just like there are a ton of guys out there. And it's not about the quantity of the people that are available out there. It's a matter of finding somebody that can dance and step with you the right way, where there's something that just feels familiar. And I think it's important to say that it does. You have to, what you're talking about is staying present, being mindful. And those are things that are hard to practice. It's something, I actually just started a gratitude journal. And, if I don't do it the first thing I get up in the morning, I try to do it before I go to bed, because having a gratitude journal, reminding myself of the things that I am grateful for today in this moment, also helps me stay present with all of the things that I am hopeful for. And I think not it's important not to lose that hope. I mean, I would never want you to lose or let go of the hope of meeting somebody, but at the same time it's finding that balance of, I can have hope and be open while also being present in everything that I have that's good in my life today, here and now, and then we see where the cards fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really hard to practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would definitely say that, um, like my crutch right now would be, if my mind, if is needing a place to go, it's like, oh, I can't just sit here and be in my thoughts right now. Let me do something to, um, put space, put something in my mind instead of just an empty space,
Yeah.
and be grateful and be present. And so you go to thinking about swiping on the phone or trying to find somebody like that, like, oh, maybe that'll happen right now,
Yep.
instead of just being more aware of like, okay, I don't need that right now.
Yeah.
Let me put my time and effort somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think honestly the horses are a great place to do it. For anybody who does not realize the therapeutic benefits of horses, they really are. There has been so much research that actually shows how horses can decrease cortisol levels. Like they can actually bring down blood pressure and your pulse. They can slow anxiety. Their hearts are bigger than ours. And so there's like this there's this energy that they provide that actually can translate when you're around them. Just petting a horse can actually calm somebody and bring somebody back into the present space. And horses are such intelligent creatures. They're so intelligent. They feel so many things. And I think that's why, there's programs, across the country for veterans
Mhm.
where there's, equine therapy for vets, because there's so much benefit with PTSD and being around horses and working with them, and they can feel. And so I personally think that horses are, I mean, I think you should spend. I think maybe your horses miss you. I think that it's. I think maybe you need to go out and spend some. I would love if I would love to be able to have an opportunity to say, yeah, I need to be present today, so I'm just going to go down and spend some time with my horses. Instead, I have to call a friend and be like, hey, is the stable open? Can I drive down there and hang out for a
Yeah.
little bit? I
Yeah.
think that that's such a great thing that you have. It's a gift that you have.
Mhm. It's definitely, you know, a double-sided story when it comes to that, because I've always competed, and my horses for a long time, and I say this, people don't take it wrong, like they were a tool, they were part of what I did.
Yeah.
And just like somebody with golf clubs, they're always searching for, these have served this purpose, now can I move on to some better gear? um
Mhm.
and that's always the way I've been. Like, you get attached to a horse, but then ultimately, maybe this horse is better for someone else now. The older that I've gotten, and I guess actually probably during COVID when everything kind
Mhm.
of shut down, like you
Yeah.
talked about, I ended up spending a lot more time in the barn,
Mhm.
um, just being there, because like what else was there to do? And that's when I really started more understanding. You just sit there with each horse, and all animals,
Yep.
um, are just like us in the way of like having a personality. And
Yeah.
it's fun to sit there and watch them, the pecking order that they may have, or, like the good horse that I've always had. And I sold him a couple months ago. He was a prick. I mean, to the other horses, like I'd sit there and watch him stand at the gate so the other horses couldn't come to the water trough. I
He was the
mean,
alpha.
like just run them out of the stalls. They were scared to death of him. But, I could be out and walk out to the pasture, and he could come up to me, and you pet him, and he just
Yeah.
melts like a big
Yeah.
old baby. Like it's like bullied back in the day or something. And but once he would get soft, he just loved being touched and petted. Even
Yeah.
though to everybody, all the other horses, he was the biggest prick in the pasture. Um, and I think, like you said too, it's, horses go through certain things that they don't ever forget that,
Yep.
somebody's put them through. And then they have to develop a trust, with
Yeah.
someone new, and with that animal instinct. And then that's not an easy feat at all. But then you have horses that are just lovers and want to be with somebody and
Mhm.
want to give them all the affection and care that they have.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
it's
we
an
could learn a lot of,
Oh
with
my god, we
animals.
can learn so much from being around horses. I mean, animals in
And,
general, but horses have a long memory. And
yep.
so I think that that's why they're so therapeutic and so helpful. And I've always seen them in that way.
I got some mini donkeys now, and they are so good.
I I noticed that, and I'm not sure what kind of therapeutic benefit donkeys provide, but I'm sure.
Oh man, just think of off of Shrek, a little donkey on there. I mean,
Oh God.
I have this internal monologue, dialogue with my little donkey. I call him Don Julio, and eh, he's just a riot. I mean, he's just a little shithead. Um, but I can pull up and honk to him and do a little donkey call, and he sees me and he just starts hooping and hollering and running over to me, and I mean, they're like a big dog, but probably smarter, to be honest.
Probably, I would assume that they would be. I've never met a donkey. I've never seen a donkey in person, so I think that is. I think it's interesting, but I do think animals. Like I have a dog that I can't even imagine if I had to go through all this the last 5 years without my dogs. I
Mhm,
probably would have lost my mind. I
mhm,
think that there's so much benefit in having animals around you. In kind of wrapping all of this up, you've had so many life experiences that you've carried with you, and I don't think it really, it doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter if we come from the Northeast or the Southwest or the Midwest or the West Coast. I don't it doesn't matter where you've lived. What matters is how we've lived and how that translates into dealing with really difficult life circumstances and challenges. And so, you know, to see how you have navigated and how you continue to grow, it is hopeful. It's such a great feeling to see that there's somebody, especially of the opposite sex, who can sit there and say, I'm willing to admit A, B, and C. I'm willing to show that this is a weakness for me. I'm willing to say that I can be vulnerable and open to this, and these are my challenges. And I think it's a good reminder, and it's a good place to sit, to show other people that we're all trying to navigate really, really difficult things, and that life is just not, it was never promised that it was going to be easy,
mhm.
but how can we make the most of it? And so, in looking and reflecting on everything that you have encompassed in your life, what would you tell somebody, if somebody were to ask your advice or to say, what's one piece of advice that you can give me? What's one thing that you would share with people that you think that you want them to carry with them, that you want them to know going forward in their own lives if they're listening or watching this?
Um, I think from my experience, some of the things that I've learned, when we're young, you just kind of go into those experiences, just fast forward full force. It's young love, which is a great thing. Those emotions can go really high and go really low.
Mhm.
And to learn from that, you need to know that there has to be a little bit of a balance. You want those good emotions and you want those negative experiences, but with those negatives, you have to learn how to communicate and grow in those moments and not say hurtful or bad things that people ultimately carry with them. That's a big thing. On the other side of that, you have to know how to, if you've made mistakes or do those things, you have to sit with them and sit with yourself,
Mhm.
um, and really learn from them, you know, say how they affect you, or
Mhm.
also um, how they may affect somebody else. And
Right.
you have to be be real with yourself, be happy with yourself, be whole with
Mhm.
yourself, and know that if you're that way, then ultimately you can share that with somebody else.
Mhm.
And really, though, that you have to have that in return.
Yeah.
And
I think that
I think that's what gets difficult the older we get is, for one, people, men and women, don't really know where what they're going through, or what situation might hurt them or help them.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, we all carry our own baggage,
Yeah.
and you gotta be willing to open that up and share it with that other person, and they have to be willing to embrace that.
And that's easier said than, especially, at this stage in life, I mean, we're not in our 20s. So, you come with more life circumstance and more life experience than you would back then. And
Mhm.
I think that it can be challenging to want to open yourself up and share that. And you get used to, you get set in your ways. As you get older, you kind of get set in your ways with how you've done things for a really long time. And so I think it goes back to that as well, that we have to be willing to continue to bend and shape and learn and stay open if we really truly want to find somebody, or maintain and have a relationship that can work. Um, I think that all of those things really they come into play when we're dealing with navigating this, especially at this phase in our lives. So I think it's all really, this kind of conversation is something that's so important because I don't think we have enough of it. I think that we don't talk enough about our own vulnerabilities and our own insecurities and how that shapes how we're meeting people based on what we've been through in our lives. So I really appreciate you being willing to be so raw and so open with where you're at. I know it is not an easy ask, so I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a good day. It's been a good conversation.
It's been a great conversation. There are a lot of things that I'm going to be reflecting on when we get
Yeah,
done with
me
this
too. I sit here,
conversation.
some of the things I've said, I'm like, all right.
I have a tendency to bring that out in people, so I have a tendency
Yeah,
to get
well,
people to say
it
things.
just goes back to the whole like therapeutic and talking and counseling thing. Like, like you said, it's people ultimately when you do that, you're expressing your thoughts out loud. And
Yep.
that's the difference. You can sit there and talk to yourself all day long.
Yep.
But once you verbalize it and put it outside, it becomes a different thing.
Yep. And again, in all honesty, when you put it out there like that, it pulls you out of your head and it puts you into your heart space and it has you feeling things because you've said it out loud. So there's no bottling that back up. Now it's kind of out, it's been said, and now you're forced to feel what you've kind of verbalized and said out loud. And I think it's really fascinating how these things kind of develop. So I really appreciate the time that you gave us today and sharing your experiences and your hope, for navigating this. And I think, to everybody that's watching, it's such a great reminder that we're all navigating this journey. And whether you've lost a spouse or you come from a place of divorce and you've dealt with a lot of trauma, there are ways to navigate moving forward and not being alone, as long as you're willing to be open and admit that we all come flawed, we all come with baggage and experience, and we're never too old to continue learning and growing. And I think you could be 80 years old and still learn something new. And I think that that's vitally important for all of us to remember.
And I think also too, just to add to that, when we say baggage, or like whenever I say baggage, a lot of people put such a negative connotation with that.
That's
It's
true.
not.
Yeah.
It's not that it's baggage in a negative way. It's just like, you're carrying your life in these suitcases.
Yeah.
And, if you want to set them down somewhere and open them up with somebody and be like, this
Here
is
you
who I
go.
am. This is me.
Yeah.
This is where I've been. This is the mistakes I've made. This is the good things that I've done in my life.
Mhm.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
That's the baggage that we bring into a new relationship or just life in general.
I like that. I really like that. I think that that's a great way to explain it because it's not a negative thing. It just is. We all come with a lot of stickers on our luggage that have shown where we've been in life.
And some of those have scratched because they've been a part of our lives for a good while.
Or they've
they're not all
peeled around
nice,
the edges.
shiny and new.
Yeah. So yeah, I think thank you so much. It's so enlightening.
I appreciate you having me. It's been great.
So with that, everybody, stay tuned because we will be right back. In this episode of Cooking for One, Cooking Made Simple, we are going to be making a gorgeous tomato, cucumber, and mozzarella salad. along with a beautiful Angus beef burger with sharp cheddar. So come along for the ride with me as I show you how to make this amazing dish. We're going to start by dicing our grape tomatoes. You're going to halve them, and then you're going to put them in a medium to large size bowl. Next, you're going to take a red onion, and you're going to use about half of it. Now, I have a hack for you. In order to dice a perfect onion, you can actually create slits along the entire onion and then cross-cut it along its width, and it will give you perfectly diced red onion. Now, if you want to use the slivers or the slits for long pieces in the salad, feel free to do that as well. But you're going to use about a medium onion. You don't have to use the whole thing, and you're going to add this to the bowl with your cherry tomatoes or your grape tomatoes. Next, we're going to take cucumbers. And what I love about this is when you're cutting up your cucumbers, when you're doing your grape tomatoes, you can get smaller prepackaged vegetables to make your life easier. You don't have to do all of the work yourself. But for these, we are using seedless mini cucumbers, and you're just cutting them lengthwise to give you a dime-sized cucumber or quarter-sized cucumber. And you're going to add about 2 or 3 of these to your bowl with the tomatoes and the onions that you just put in. And make sure that everything is pre-washed before you use them. Next, we're going to use our pearls mozzarella. So these are pearl-sized mozzarella, and you're going to drain the water, rinse them off, and you're going to add the entire package of the mozzarella to your bowl. Look how beautiful that looks. Next, we're going to make our dressing that goes on top of this. So we're just basically using a red wine vinegar and olive oil along with a generous amount of salt and pepper. This is such a great dish to make this time of year before we really truly head into the fall season. It's such a great way to cap off the summer, enjoy the warm weather, and these are simple dishes that you can make that literally take no time at all. And my favorite, of course, fresh basil. You can't go wrong with sprigs of fresh basil. You don't have to chop this up. You simply pull it off, cut it, or pull it apart, and you're going to add it to your dish. And then you're going to put your vinaigrette on top with your salt and pepper, and then you're going to toss it all together, and you're going to put it in the fridge so that it can set and cool with the vinaigrette while you move on to preparing your burger. Next, we have our beautiful Angus beef burger. Now, make your life simple, folks. You don't have to get ground burger meat and put this together yourself. You can get pre-made patties at any grocery store or meat market. But we're going to actually make a dipping sauce that's going to be basted over this while it's on the grill. And all it is Worcestershire, olive oil, and that's it. And you're going to whisk that together. Before you add that, you're going to do a steak seasoning. Now, the one I'm showing you is a pre-made seasoning specifically for burgers and steaks. You don't need a lot of it because there is a lot of salt in the seasoning mixture. So you want to do a very light amount. You want to pat the burger dry, add the seasoning, and then really push it in to your burger patty. Your basting is not going to be done till it's on the grill. And then we go out We get the grill nice and heated up. You really only need it to about 450, 475 for your heating range, and this gives you that really nice grill mark on your burger. Look at how juicy and red that looks. Angus beef has got such great flavor and texture to it, and this doesn't take long. But then you can start basting your burger with the dressing that you just made with your Worcestershire and your olive oil. Really, you want to look for the red juices to really start turning more of a clear color, and it does not take long for burgers to cook. These are simple dishes you can make for one individual. Once I take my burger off, I actually take a brioche bun that I've added a little bit more butter to, and I'm going to add that to the grill just to char it up and give it some warmth and let that butter melt that I put on the brioche bun. And then you can start dressing your burger. I add extra sharp cheddar cheese to my burger. You can add spinach, lettuce, arugula, whatever you'd like. I add dill pickles. I do a green mustard and ketchup. And this is what I do for my burger. And then there you have it. Look at that dish. How beautiful is that? A gorgeous, easy to make summer meal on the grill that doesn't take any time at all, and it's a perfect meal for one. It's healthy, it's nutritious, and it's such a great way to cap off the summer. The ingredients and the measurements for these recipes can be found on our website, thegameongliopodcast.com. You'll find the recipe cards there with the exact amounts that you need for each of the recipes and pictures as well. These are such simple, easy dishes with small little cheats that you can take to cut some corners to make your life simple and easier. From my house to yours, what a great way to end the summer. Happy cooking.
You've been listening to the Game on Glio podcast, the podcast that is designed to educate, advocate, and tell the real stories of those walking the journey of brain cancers such as glioblastoma and grief and loss. Like what you hear? Share us with others. Follow us on Instagram at Game on Glio Podcast, Facebook at Game on Glio, or visit our website or YouTube channel. You can find us anywhere podcasts are played.